In this lesson, we'll use some of the curves that we've already built to go in and create some geometry for the window. Okay, so this is the area that we need to fill in right here with the window pane and this door and this quarter panel back here. So we need some way to fill that in. Now you could take like a plane and start manually trying to match that up, but we've got it at an angle and it's a little bit of a curve right here. So that could cause you a little bit of a problem. You could try to extrude up and move that in, move some points, but let's go ahead and check out and see if we have any curves that we might be able to use to create that geometry. So I'm going to just turn off my surfaces here and see these curves. Okay, we've got this curve that defines the top of the window, and then we could use this one, the belt line here, that goes all the way along. We could use that to define the bottom. Okay, so if you remember, there's a way to go in and actually cut this curve wherever it's intersecting here, but the first thing we need to make sure of is that these points are actually snapped right to that curve. So I'll just hold down my C key and drag it along the curve here. And just try to, if I can get that right attached right there. There we go. And let's go ahead and do the back one just to make sure that it's nice. And sometimes my manipulator gets a little bit too big. You can always just hit the minus key and shrink that down. So I'm going to just snap that right to the curve. Here we go. And now all I'm going to do is select the top curve and the bottom curve, and then I'll just go up to under surfaces, edit curves, cut curves. Okay, now you can see I have a new curve that's just the bottom portion here, and then this curve right here. So now we just need to create a surface out of this, and we only have two curves, but we know that if we're going to make a NURB surface, we know that's going to be a patch. If we're going to make a surface out of curves, and that's going to have four sides. So rather than trying to figure out how to make the computer put our kind of corners where we want them to be, let's go ahead and tell it right away where we want those corners to be. So I'm just going to have this be the bottom, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this top piece into basically three sides. Okay, so we'll have a top piece and then two sides, and that'll make our surface creation go a little bit easier. Okay, and I'm just going to go in and grab a curve point and drag it somewhere along here, and shift, drag another one, maybe right about there. Okay, and just edit curve, and I'm just going to detach that. Okay, so now we have basically top, bottom, and then two sides. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to rebuild this to a 4, spans 4, so rebuild that curve. I'm going to rebuild, and let's just rebuild all these guys to 4. Okay, so now if we take a look at here, all these curves are rebuilt, so we're going to have a nice 4x4 surface. So now I'm just going to select all these curves, and then I will go up to surfaces and let's do a boundary. Okay, you can see it's created a nice clean surface for us because we cut that up. So it's kind of gone from the bottom and gone right up to the top there, which is kind of what we want. Now I just want to go ahead and reverse that. And I'm going to show my surfaces again. And you can see now we have some nice geometry in here for the actual window piece. Okay, you might need to go in here and modify that shape a little bit. I'm just turn my curves off. You can see right now it's intersecting a little bit, so we do need to modify it a little bit. And we're not going to go in here and pull points. Let's go ahead and use a lattice. Just go into animation. I'm going to create a deformer, a lattice deformer. And I think 3x3x3 probably work for us. Now I'm going to right click on the lattice, select lattice points, and then right up here, this is basically just kind of a cage that allows us to deform a higher res geometry using kind of a lower res cage. I'm going to just select these top portion. This is going to basically affect this part, And I'm just going to move it slightly in. Let's look over here. This looks pretty good except for the bottom part. We can go ahead and grab these lattice points on the bottom and maybe just pull that down a little. If you want to go ahead and pull the front forward a little and in so that it's just so that it's intersecting with the door frame there. Okay, and this kind of avoids, using a lattice avoids getting little dents and having to mess with all the individual CVs. With this, you're able to move it and deform it in a large kind of way, even though it's maybe a little bit more high res. Okay, and down here, I'm just going to pull this down so that and maybe out a bit. And I think this can come forward maybe a little bit and back. And just mess around with it a little bit and just kind of deform that into position. And then when you're done, to get rid of that lattice and save those changes, all you have to do is delete its history. Okay, so now we've got a nice piece of window geometry. See right here, looks like we may need to lattice that in just a little so we don't have a gap there. There we go. So we've got our window placed in there. So in the next lesson, we're actually going to come in here. If we take a look at our side view, we're going to add this little circular piece of geometry onto this B pillar right here. Okay, we'll tackle that in the next lesson.